All right. Looks like we're live here, I think. I don't know. I'm going to try giving myself some props. Can I give myself props? Nope. Can't even prop myself. Looks like we're live. So I'm going to trust that that's the case and kind of dive in. How do we even start this? I was just hanging out at home tonight and decided I want to, what do I want to do? One of the things I wanted to do is take a look at some of the questions that are being asked about leadership and provide some answers for those, see what people are asking for and speak to that. So I think we're basically just going to start and go forward. So the first, and maybe, do I have a little ability to make a chat here? See if I can do that. No, don't want to change the topic. Tell a little bird. Mentions, all messages. So first question is judging others Satan's way of diverting your focus from your faults? So I think, is judging others Satan's way of diverting your focus from your faults? I love this question. And I'm not sure that it was necessarily asked in a leadership rubric or feed or anything like that, but I think that's a really great question to be asking ourselves. Is judging others Satan's way of diverting your focus from your fault? And I think if we use Satan to mean whatever holds us in place, whatever stops us, like to maybe look at it a little more metaphorically or literally, if you like, I think there's a lot to be said for how judging others diverts our focus from our faults. I think probably the more powerful way you could ask this question is, does judging others, is that a way I divert my own focus from my faults? And if the answer is yes, well, hey, right on. Now you've got something you can move forward with. Next question. Is visionary leader more effective than pragmatic leader? Is visionary more effective? Is a visionary leader more effective than a pragmatic leader? I think that this is the wrong question to ask. Or maybe it's not the wrong question, sorry, I want to retract that, but I think it's more interesting to look at the question being asked than to try to give an answer. And a lot of people you can see here are talking about the differences, and some people are speaking to the same point, like Karen Willis writes, one doesn't preclude the other. And I think that that's really true. That question, it's like you can either be visionary or pragmatic. And I think real leadership or part of the growth to get there is actually integrating those two. Where this person gets stuck in their leadership is in like trying to sort of have it as one or the other. That's probably where they're getting stuck. Let's move on. What is a wellness coach? What is a wellness coach? Here's how I want to answer that. I find that a really powerful coach, a coach that is really doing the work, they coach the person. And it doesn't matter what that person is doing. You can hear this in high performance sports, athletics, where really good coaches will say, you don't coach the basketball player, you coach the player, not the game. And that's what any coach is doing, is they really are coaching the person. So when someone says to me, I'm a wellness coach, I relate to that as their coach, and where they like to specialize, where they like to bring that skill is in the area of wellness. For me, my area happens to be high performance and executive leadership. I love working in those areas. But at the core, the fundamental way of being, the thing that I'm bringing is it's coaching. And so I think that's an important distinction, that there's coaching and then there's the domain you apply it in, wellness. Okay. Question. How do leaders unite people? That's an interesting question, isn't it? How do leaders unite people? I'm just looking at these answers here. It's interesting. You can see people jump to answer the how-to questions by telling and convincing people about what he truly believes about his biggest dream. Yeah, sometimes a a really powerful vision will really unite people. People will unite around a powerful vision. Here's someone who says, leaders are inspiring people with their purpose, cause, or belief. People want to know why and take ownership of it. And then he references Simon Sinek. That's true as well, I think, to an extent, although I don't think to be a leader, you necessarily have to be inspiring. For some people, inspiration is their means. But really, I think that leaders are a lightning rod. They're kind of a thing around which people aggregate. And I also think that a leader's job is to have people inspired themselves, as opposed to people kind of getting attached to the leader's vision. Because to have someone working with you, working on your team because of what you see, because of what you're inspired in, that's great to an extent, but it's going to wear out. People need to be inspired for themselves in something. And so I think that is probably my spin that I'd put on it, is that one of the ways, this is just one of many, but one of the ways that leaders really unite people is to enroll those people in something that they see for themselves. Very powerful. Alrighty, let's have a look here at our next question. This is a good one. So what are the pros and cons of being a leader? What are the pros and cons of being a leader? And then they elaborate on it. What are the pros you can give and get as a leader? And what are the, brackets, not so necessarily cons, but difficulties you can give and get from others as a leader? It's a little weird that the way that this person's asked it, that you can give and get as a leader. So the first thing I would say is a major con of being a leader is that it puts a bullseye on your back. As soon as you stand up and are a leader for something in the world, there's going to be people that disagree with you about what you're leading the charge in. And those people, some of them will be vociferous. They'll be loud and aggressive, and your particular stance for what you're a leader in will trigger them, and they will attempt to resolve that trigger by coming at you or talking about you or whatever. So that's one of the big cons. I think one of the big pros in being a leader is that you get to be accountable for your life. Now, this is also a con, right? There's a consequence to being accountable for your life. But really, that is one of the biggest pros. You no longer can blame any aspect of your life on other people. You become the owner of every aspect of your life. And once you're the owner of every aspect of your life, you now are the one that controls it. You control the outcome to an extent. And so this is really challenging, actually continually leaning into your edge, because as humans, we don't really love the idea of being accountable for our entire lives. We think we are, or that we do, but we're very hesitant and very sneaky about it. And some people will say, oh, I'm always accountable for everything I do. And those people flip the coin around. What they're doing is they're learning to play a really small game so that they never break their word, or never, aren't able to keep their word, or aren't accountable. And so it's kind of about actually developing that ability to take on the impossible and fail at it and still get up and continue to play that game. So I think that is a huge pro of leadership. It's also a consequence in that it's a different path. So those are one pro, one con each that I would put in there. Okay, let's have a look at the next one. I'm just going to write these in our little chat box here. So far, I'm blabbing to myself too, incidentally. So I hope that I'm recording, because otherwise this will be a bad call on my part. So how do I train to improve gravitas to advance my potential as a female leader? How do I train to advance my gravitas? To improve my gravitas to advance my potential as a female leader. So, first of all, I'm really interested about I'm just going to read what this person. So one person, the only answer there, I don't mean to laugh out of I'm not disparaging this person. It's just funny the way they've written a big, here's how you need to do it, and their bio declares them as a self-appointed leader. So it's a great how-to. I don't think that how-tos usually help people, not because the person is not well-meaning, that's offering the how-to advice, nor because that person has it wrong per se. I'm sure this person and their steps it looks very well thought out. It's got bullet points, very nice. I find typically, though, that it's not the doing that has people stuck. It's not, this person doesn't need a series of steps like an algorithm to step through. That's not why she's stuck. And if we really look at the question, it draws it out a little bit. It gives us more information. So how do I train to improve my gravitas to advance my potential as a female leader? That's interesting, right? In order to advance your potential as a female leader, you must train your gravitas. So that's the first assumption I noticed, just born into that. And maybe helping this person train how to have gravitas is really going to benefit them. Maybe that's what there is to do. But maybe it's not about the gravitas at all. Maybe the real issue is, why does this person believe that gravitas is going to advance their potential as a female leader? So as a coach, that's where we're really looking. There's like this little zone in between the words. And that's where the real transformation, the real work can happen. So I think my answer to this person is like, there's clearly some great steps this person's provided. You could go online and probably just Google gravitas training and find something. I think where I would start with you is by asking the question, what is it about like leadership as a woman, as a female, that you believe requires gravitas? That's my answer to that question. I'm going to save that one because I'm actually going to write that to her as well. This is such a great question. Now that I am 31, are my chances of being successful over? This is hilarious, right? It's not hilarious. So the person asking this, there's nothing wrong with you asking this question. It's actually amazing. I love the earnestness of it. And I say no. That's my answer. I really don't think there's any end to, there's no point where you can no longer be successful. And if you look at some of our inspired leaders from the past, like Abraham Lincoln, like that man failed a lot. 31 is very young. I would say for me, 20s was kind of experimenting, trying out some a career, and also getting a lot of partying out of my system. Not as much as I might have liked to get out of my system, but certainly some. And then 30s were where I started, like, I've been starting to put sort of the real pieces together. The other thing I would say, I can't remember who said this quote. I'm actually going to look it up right now. Your only job until you're 40 is, so it's a preliminary search, but okay, I can't find it. Someone wrote this quote. I think it's brilliant. And I keep attributing it to Warren Buffett, but I have no idea if that's true. Whoever it was, they said, your only job until you're 40 is to figure out what you want to do with your life. That's it. That's your job. So if you're in the process of doing that, you're succeeding at your job. And that's not intended to be really pithy. The sort of reasoning behind that is that he says, if you look at people's earning potential, it really rockets up after the age of 40. Most of people's earnings are in their later years because they've kind of established themselves. They've got, not even if they haven't stayed in one career trajectory, they've got a wealth of different pots of knowledge to draw from. And so don't worry about being successful or having the right job when in your 30s. Worry, like, figure out, have I figured out yet what I want to do with the rest of my life? And if not, cool, move on to the next, keep trying. So no, I think, in fact, at 31, maybe that's the right time to start asking that question. Like, and I think one other thing occurs as I'm looking at this. Now that I'm 31, are my chances of being successful over? I think I would upgrade this person's question. Instead of asking themselves that question, because that's a defeating question, right? There's a yeah, no, they're not over. Okay, well, your mind's kind of attenuated now to, well, when will they be over? When am I going to fall off? So I would upgrade this question to something along the lines of, now that I am 31, what is it that I want to be successful at? Or now that I'm 31, where do I want to be by the time I'm 35? So instead of worrying, can I or can't I? Is it too late? Is it not too late? I think for this person, I would switch their tack to just more, let's assume that I can be successful. Now, what is it that I want to be successful in? What do I really want to create? That's where I would change that kind of thinking. Okay, next one. Do we need more leaders at the local level to inspire change? 2 answers. One person said, of course, you don't make a wall from boulders, you have to use bricks. I don't totally see that metaphor, but I guess at the local level, it's more granular. Do we need more leaders at the local level to inspire change? We need more leaders everywhere. It's that simple. We really, we just need people leading, people stepping into leaders and leadership. And it's that simple. There's a huge dearth of it. This whole concept of leadership is, I think it's nascent or new to an extent. Obviously, we've been putting it together for a long time, but there's a lot that we're still slowly accepting because it's a humbling position. And we're coming out of an era where being humble is not, it's a challenge for a lot of people. A lot of people are very focused on sort of, I can do it. I don't need support. I can take it all on. I can take it all on. And the trouble with that is it makes it very difficult to have an impact in that person's life. If you're leading that person and your job is to create them as a leader, that's the job of leadership. When someone is very protected and needless, I don't have any needs, and sort of has everything figured out, it's very challenging to make a difference for that person if you're leading them. All that to say, we need more leaders. Absolutely, 100%. I like this. Another how-to. How do I manage someone who doesn't want to do any work? How do I manage someone who doesn't want to do any work? Such an interesting question. What does manage mean? First of all, I'm interested. I guess one thing you could do is you could move them down to the basement and stop sending paychecks to their house. That'd be one way to manage them. You could office space them. It's tough because manage is a word with many connotations. So I think what this person's asking is, how do I actually make them work? Which is, I think that's the question most of us go to. How do I make them work? When we're talking about, hey, my job as a manager is to make everyone work. This person doesn't want to do any work. How do I make them work? And I think that is the wrong question. I'm using a lot of right, wrong in this little video. I think what I mean is, well, I think there's a better question. I think the better question is, why doesn't this person want to do any work? What is that about? I'm curious about that. Have they lost interest? Are they no longer committed to the work? Are they no longer inspired by the work? Is there something in their way? Do they have to constantly deal with petty administrative issues that makes their job frustrating and they've lost hope? Are they jaded? Do they have an issue with the boss? All of these sort of possibilities exist. And if we're trying to actually, if we're trying to get them to work without actually distinguishing the reason why they aren't in the first place, we're continually going to operate over top of this substrate, this layer that's really dictating that person's action. And so all the work in the world that we do in the surface is going to have no impact down here. And as a result, you're going to create something circular. So really the thing is to take a look at, why doesn't this person want to do any work? And as a leader, part of our job is to get to the place where it's perfectly fine that they don't want to do any work. We're okay with that. To actually have it not mean that they're defective or that we're defective as leaders, but rather, hey, there's a legitimate reason that this person isn't doing any work. Human beings are not inherently lazy, I promise you. So that's the place to check as a leader. Two more, and then we're going to end. So, is COO a leader or a servant? Does it depend on a size of company? So Is the COO, the chief operating officer, a leader or a servant? Does it depend on the size of the company? So this is I'm just going to actually take a look first and see what we've got here. One person, both, says COO is both a leader and a manager, responsible for articulating how the business will achieve the CEO's vision. So this person is speaking very much to what a COO does. Another person says COO is a leader, sets standards, oversees operations, but a good leader is also a servant. Yeah, absolutely. And then this final person says the role for any C-level executive is both. He or she must be a servant to their division in order to lead them. So what would I add to those answers? I think that it's accurate to say that, well, there's a lot of talk these days about servant leadership, and I might be fat-headed. I've been eating a lot of sugar lately, so that could be it. But I'm not clear on what that means. I think we have this, I think it sounds good. It's kind of paradoxical and speaks to like the humility of the leader. And I guess maybe if I put it in sort of tandem with this concept I like of selfless leadership, setting yourself completely to the side so you can fully lead for that person. I hear a lot of people talk about servant leadership, and it sounds a little echo boxy to me. So nevertheless, the question is the person a leader or a servant? I guess they're both. I think people have talked about that. And does it depend on the size of a company? If we're talking about, I think this question is really more geared towards a position as opposed to the quality of leadership. But I'm going to speak to that second part, to the quality of leadership, because that's what I do. And the quality of leadership of a COO is is not determined by the size of a company. Obviously, the larger the size of the company, the less places there is for someone to hide out. The less places there is for someone to get away with not having done their work, having developed themselves as a leader. It becomes harder and harder because they're owning more and more. So I think in some capacities, yes, the size of the company doesn't matter. Ultimately, you want the C-level executives in your company to be doing their work, to take on whatever they need to take on in order to develop themselves and their being of leadership to really fully lead the company in actually creating the impossible. That felt very long-winded. That was a tricky question. Okay, final one. What are essential ideas in theories of thought leadership? What are essential ideas in theories of thought leadership? Boy, that is a confusing question, and there's no answers. So I think that's because no one really knows how to answer that. I think thought leadership, I mean, let's just play with that because it's an interesting concept. And I wonder can I give myself props? I can't. I just felt like giving myself a few props. So when we talk about thought leadership, to me, that means someone who is essentially just a leader, has the characteristics of a leader. They show up, they are fully expressed, they do work on themselves, they're willing to polarize people to create tens and ones, to create those people that love what they do and are willing to be as passionate and into creating the quality of that thing that they want to do, that they're willing for people to hate what they do as well. Love and hate, that's what we create as leaders. And the people that hate, hey, they're noticing what you're doing too. So that's the first thing. I think I'm sort of distinguishing this concept of a thought leader. It's someone who has the characteristics of leadership and disseminates new ideas into the world. So I think we could call Seth Godin a thought leader. We could probably call, Elon Musk a thought leader. I think, at least for my definition, a thought leader would be anyone at all that advances new ideas. And I think most leaders do that because leadership is in the unknown. That's where a leader hangs out. They don't hang out in the known. And so by definition, anyone that's hanging out in the unknown will uncover new things, will come up, and will create new distinctions. And in doing so, when they share that, sometimes inadvertently, just by the nature of their own process, that gets disseminated, and then people sort of hold that person as a thought leader. So I think that's the first thing, is a thought leader is ultimately a leader first, and then a thought leader second. And it's really, I think thought leader and leader, you could kind of collapse or put quite closely together. I don't know if that distinction provides us anything. Anything else I would add to that? What are the essential ideas? It's a bit too broad. I'd love to talk more on this question, but I think I need to have it be a little more specific. So that's all the sort of questions I got through. It's interesting. So the first time I think I created a podcast or something, I expected no one to check it out, and a bunch of people did. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. So I'm underestimating. And as I came here tonight to go through this, I had this idea. I was like, oh, it's going to be so cool. And we'll have a whole bunch of people kind of in the chat, and it'll be an edge for me. And then no one showed up. So I'm eager to kind of do this a little more collaborative, or just have this be a conversation or something. I think this is a really neat place to hang out, this area of leadership. And I think there's some great questions to be answered here. All right. See everyone later. Have a